Everyone, it's Kristen. So today is Wednesday. Um, so the card for today or yesterday was Morbius, the living vampire. I still have not seen that movie. I don't know if it's worth watching. I mean, um, I watched Madam Web. Is it better or worse than Madam Web? Because Madam Web was pretty bad. So let me know if you think I should even bother like watching it. Because yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I heard it was pretty bad, so that's why I never watched it. I also heard that about Madam Web, but I guess curiosity got the best of me. And because they showed in the promo them in their suits, I thought, oh wow, that's awesome. Little did I know it's like for 2 seconds at the very end. Anyway, because they were kind of setting it up, I think, to continue to do more movies of the Spider Woman, but that one did so poorly, I guess, that they're like, never mind. So we already talked about Morbius because he actually showed up in this stamp for Man-Wolf. And Morbius appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 101 in like 1971. I'm going to be honest though, my first exposure to him was in the Spider-Man animated series. Because, of course, when I first started getting into superheroes, X-Men was like my kind of end all be all. I still mostly focus on X-Men, but then from the X-Men I started branching out into other characters. So for me, my first exposure to Morbius was and for a lot of Spider-Man characters, I'll be honest, was the Spider-Man 90s animated series. And of course, in the comic books, he doesn't end up with Felicia. Like, they don't have that kind of relationship in the comic books. But, the whole being a biochemist and developing a rare blood disorder and trying to cure yourself using, like, electroshock therapy, something else, and, like, vampire, bat, blood, DNA. That is true of the comic books. And, like with Man-Thing, or Man-Wolf, they bounce around. They bounce him around from being like a vampire to human, and in varying degrees. So those two characters had a lot in common because it's not their natural state, but then it becomes their natural state, and even when they revert to human form, they keep reverting back to their cursed form, I will say. So let's see. And then for today is a stat card. Yay. And this is actually Ghost Rider Johnny Blaze, not his younger brother, Danny. So his first appearance was Marvel Spotlight 5, 1972. Intelligence 2, so normal. Strength 4, speed 4, durability 5, energy 4, skills 2. So interesting. I mean, yeah, like I don't even know who I would like, based on the skill cards we have already, who I'd pit him against. Because of course these skill cards, even though they have value, but it doesn't necessarily say, like, just because his skills are 2 doesn't necessarily mean he would lose in a fight to someone with the skills of 4. There's also a lot of other factors that depends on. So, but it's still fun to compare them and see, where Marvel puts them, where Marvel ranks them. Okay, so for the stamp card, it is Mantis, which this is not the Mantis that you guys really know from the MCU. Definitely looks different. Most of the Guardians of the Galaxy characters, when they're originally introduced, do not look like how they look in the in the MCU for sure. Like Drax, he had a cape at one point, and Gamora, she had more of like the yellow ring around both eyes, and then the kind of green skin. So anyway, yeah, definitely different. So this comes from Marvel 2-in-1, number 7, January 75. Also appears in Strange Tales number 171, 73, April 74, Marvel Spotlight 18 or 17, September 74, Tomb of Dracula 31, April 75, Marvel 2-in-1, number 12, October 1975. So this is where this comes from. The Avengers 14. And her first appearance was actually Avengers 12 or 112. So this is 114, not very like far down the road from her first appearance. Oh, hi, Kitty. Did you come to join us? Kind of, not really. So this was August 73, so her first appearance was June of 73. So art by John Romita Sr. So what happened really is, you can see it says Night of the Swordsman. And we talked about the Swordsman before because he's the one that trained Hawkeye, trained Clint Barton, found him, trained him. But turned out Swordsman is not a nice guy. So, okay, Mantis has like most superhero characters, has a complicated like backstory. Like she's half German, half Vietnamese, and her Vietnamese father left her at this temple of these alien priests who were like an offshoot of the Kree, and they thought she was going to be the one to mate with the eldest coati. They're like the plant-like creatures who are more like trees than people, and they like came to Earth once and like invaded it because they weren't happy about how the plants were being treated here. So they thought she was going to be the one to, sorry, I didn't want her to like step on the button and then I'd have to start over. So they thought she was the one who was going to be married to this guy and produce like the most important being in all the universe. So they, trained her like in martial arts and stuff and taught her things. And then when she was an adult, they mind wiped her and sent her out into the world to experience the world. She had a lot of, in the beginning, not so great careers, if you know where I'm going with that. And then the swordsman found her and kind of like they bonded, and she went with him, and he went to go join the Avengers, and so she kind of joined the Avengers, even though of course the swordsman was kicked out of the Avengers because they realized he was not a nice guy, and Hawkeye was like no, don't trust him. So and then she learned that she loved the swordsman only after he was killed, and the Coati, however you pronounce the plant people's name, they like reanimated his body, and one of them went into his reanimated body, and so they went off and they had a son together, and she had the son for like a year before basically his people, the boy's people, were demanding that she bring him to them, in outer space, obviously. And she did, but she was really resentful of that fact. But she, came back to Earth. She didn't stay, which I'm not sure, like, why she didn't. I can't remember. Maybe she felt like she didn't belong there, or they didn't want her there. I can't remember exactly, but she was pretty resentful. She ran into the Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer actually fell in love with her, but she... Sorry, Dazzler's looking at me. Something happened. She, like, seemingly died in an explosion, but really happened is she was just, like, all the stress of everything that had happened, like, split her off, like, into... I can't even remember how many copies, how many, like, different people, so to speak. So, and eventually she came back and re-emerged with all of her copies and became whole again. At some point she did, she developed new powers and her skin turned green and she could exist in space. So, and there was one story they did, which they later completely redid it and said that didn't really happen, that she was the bride of Kang because he was a little bit obsessed with her. And she came back to exact revenge on the Avengers because she thought that this was all their fault and, they were liars and, had betrayed her. But they retooled it to where that's not happened. It was like a space phantom that imitated her form and it wasn't really her. I don't know, it was a super super unpopular story. People did not like that. So they totally drastically changed it. Let's see what else. Oh, and the whole Guardians of the Galaxy, she ended up on nowhere, living on nowhere, and ran into Peter, and they started to be like the counselor. Do you see Dazzler? She's like barely in the frame. She started to be the counselor to the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then later they learned that Peter had actually asked her to use her mental powers to manipulate them into joining the Guardians of the Galaxy, which they were not happy about, and pretty much all of them left. Because Drax, he overheard them talking about this. So they all left, and then she went on to save Peter's life, but she decided not to rejoin the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then, of course, there was a thing where her son came with his people, like I said, to basically take over the Earth, infiltrate it, because they weren't happy about how plants were being treated here. And then she was instrumental in that, of course, like calming down her son. So anyway, it's just kind of another crazy character comic book story, origin story kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure I missed parts. Like, it's pretty extensive, and I'm sure I missed parts, but I think I got most of I think I got the main bulk points in there. But yeah, so definitely different than the MCU version of Mantis. She is definitely not, she's more of a fighter. Like I said, she's a skilled martial artist. She is not passive like the Mantis in the MCU. She does have the mental powers, but yeah, definitely different. Like I said, I'm not sure. Well, I guess they just take, they're inspired by the comic books. They take things and use them, but they're just inspired by it. And I don't know, sometimes, as being a comic book collector for years and years and years, sometimes that annoys me, but I get it because you're trying to bring in a new audience, and sometimes you have to simplify things or leave things out in order for the story to make sense, in order for it not to be like 50 hours long. So I get it, but at the same time, sometimes I'm disappointed when they do that. So anyway, I think Dazzler sees a bird in the tree out there. But anyway, I hope you will join me for more videos in the future. And I'm sorry if I confused you. I confused myself a little bit with Mantis, with her story, because it's kind of crazy and it's kind of all over the place, to be honest. So anyway, I hope you will join me again for future videos. And until then, bye.